That's episode 5 of Your Hood's a Joke. I'm here with Kenny Robinson. Kenny, hi, how are you doing?
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, likewise. So yeah, this is episode 5, our first episode after our super successful Just for Laughs show.
All right.
Kenny, you were also on the Winnipeg Comedy Festival show
Yeah, I
in
had
April.
a ball doing that one.
That was awesome, yeah. So now we're back in Toronto doing a couple things here and there. Just a quick primer for everybody who may or may not be listening. Got Kenny Robinson, Canadian comedy legend. I've been doing comedy in Canada for what now, 30 plus?
No, more than that. I think I first did a comedy night, open comedy night was like 1977, April of 77.
70s in Toronto?
No, in Winnipeg.
Holy.
At the Royal Albert Arms. I was taking political science and theater at U of W. And they weren't any of the auditions they had for the productions didn't include light-skinned dudes with big afros, you know. So
Yeah.
Also I discovered Richard Pryor from his album That Nigger's Crazy. So a friend of mine was, I used to do impressions and stuff. So a friend of mine was daring me to do this new comedy night that they were doing, and I did well the first night. If I had bombed, I may have given up with that and just been happy with a union job somewhere, or maybe would have finished school, but. Didn't turn out that way. I did well and went back the second time. And after about the third time, I said, well, we're not going to do it as an impressionist, so we're going to start writing material. Because I only had about half a dozen voices.
You started with impressions?
Yeah, I used to do all the Edward G. Robinson, Bogart. Used to do all the old Warner Brothers stars that were already dead. As an impressionist, I was already screwed because I was already doing dead guys to start with.
You're doing impressions from the 50s, basically? Or
from everything that they show when you had 4 channels in your city, whatever they showed on your late night thing.
Yeah, well, see, the reason I bring that up, 1977, that's 41 years ago.
Okay.
So, like, one of the things that is very kind of, I didn't grow up in Canada. I've been here 14 years.
Where'd you grow up?
Russia.
Okay.
So Russia, then India.
Black
then
Russian.
Yeah, brown Russian. That's vodka and hot chocolate.
That'll do it.
So that Russia,
when they're underage.
India, Bangladesh, and then here. And I've been, like, poor everywhere else.
Okay.
Canada's been nice to me.
Are you wealthy here?
Kind of.
Or
Not wealthy, but I was able to work my way, because it's for one of the reasons why I started this show in particular is Canada. Even though I'm a minority here, I'm a minority in every country on the planet. Especially Russia.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, also I'm multi-ethnic. I'm not multi-racial, but I'm, like, 2 different kinds of brown, right? And when you're in that part of the world, being mixed in any level is bad.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean,
absolutely.
Like, people say interracial hate is bad, but interethnic is almost worse because you're hating on somebody who looks exactly like you.
And don't even concern yourself with religious shit.
Oh, that's a whole.
You go to India and you got your Sikhs, and are they Hindu? And then Pakistan was in order to the Muslims had a place to not want you to come.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a trifecta on that area.
Exactly.
That part
so
of the world.
I was poor. My mom had gotten divorced, so I was a single mom's kid who had mixed kids, and her stigma and all of that. So life wasn't great out there on any of, and of course on top of that being poor. So we've
poor sucks no matter what shade you are.
Exactly. But the difference is here I got a fair shot.
Okay.
Right, in Canada, like, obviously things aren't perfect here, but I've been in enough parts of the world to know that relative to elsewhere, things here, like, if you toughen up just a little bit, you can get things done.
Can you say somebody has to toughen up now, or is that victimizing,
exactly.
or is that blaming?
That's a good question. That's a good question, because if I, like, even 14 years ago when I first came here versus
How old were you when you got here?
I was 19.
Okay.
I'm 33 now.
Okay.
So I was already pretty much a fully grown human, not with fully formed ideas, because I've changed a lot since then, right? But coming here, I noticed that, the United States is a no-go for me as far as I'm concerned. I think the barriers to entry would have been a lot higher in a lot of different ways. But at the same time, I think I would have probably been more commercially successful because they're a capitalist economy and they're hungry for things,
absolutely.
Right? Personality-wise, I kind of prefer Canada for, like, other reasons as well. Like, I don't want to be right now in 2018 walking down the street and getting yelled at for being a quote-unquote terrorist or something.
Hell, you don't want to be a black man in a black neighborhood in the city of Chicago.
Hell no.
So never mind the terrorism angle. But then again, see, you ain't got to do anything but be your color and get called a terrorist here in Toronto now.
No, absolutely. However, the level...
I'm sorry, but I'm probably like the only dude praying when that shooting went down on the Danforth. It was a white dude. And I argued with people over it. Thank you. I argued with people.
So many people, yeah.
And I even then when they said, well, even when they came up with this background, I said, well, still doesn't mean it was terrorist, because once they start lynching, they start lynching.
Well,
So
in Italy, they're now shooting black people on the street.
But that's nothing. They've been burning buildings with immigrants in Germany for 20 years.
Exactly.
This ain't nothing new.
This is
Before
not,
9/11, in Germany they've been doing this because, well, that's what they do in Germany.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about is, like there are people who've always grown up, let's say in a place like Toronto, right? Versus you were in Winnipeg in the 70s
and Chicago.
And
I grew up in Chicago.
Oh, you grew up?
We moved from Montreal to Chicago about 3 weeks before JFK got shot in the head.
Oh my God!
So I was watching a kids show, Bozo Circus, which and at noon came out at noontime every day.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there watching this kiddie program. My dad's doing whatever he's doing around the house, and we interrupt this broadcast with special bulletin. President Kennedy has been struck down by an assassin's bullet. So my father's trying to hear the info. I'm going, Dad, what's an assassin's bullet? Because I thought it was different than a regular kind of bullet.
Yeah.
And he tried to explain to me the Marines couldn't save him because once you're shot, you're shot.
Yeah, in the head.
Yeah. So there I am, a child. All of a sudden, whatever reality of a kiddie show is just blown away with this iconic figure who is going to do right for civil rights and the poor and make America great again. And all these other things. It's like, boom,
Was there a fear that the shooter was black?
No, that was never a fear.
That was
thought he was either Cuban or Russian.
Okay,
because that was during the whole Cold War thing.
Right.
So there's never a fear of him being black, And then when Jack Ruby shot Oswald, I got a picture of Jack Ruby out of the newspaper, and I took it to bed with me every night, and I kissed Jack Ruby's picture every night after saying my prayers.
Yeah, well, they say that JFK was the last president of the United States, right? Effectively, like a people's president. There's a lot of one question I wanted to ask. Actually, I was thinking about this morning and the reason that's why I brought up my upbringing and also yours is that things are different now, better for people of color in like Canada, let's say, as opposed to 40 years ago. Like how much better is like up to debate, but I would say, I guess racism is making a little bit of a comeback, but things are better
it
here.
Never left. It's all a matter where you've been.
Okay, so that's what I mean. So like I've only been here 14 years, right?
Okay.
And I've seen a bit of a difference in the last 14. And having grown up in a much rougher environment, I can understand how much worse it can get.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, I almost feel a little bit of guilt when I tell people to toughen up. Even though that's my natural, like, that's my instinct. Be like, if somebody's like, blah, 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 this happened at a show, somebody heckled, somebody said something. My instinct is, you don't know how much worse it can get. Just grow a, you just get thicker skin.
Grow a pair.
Exactly.
But you can't say grow a pair because is that misogynist? Is that sexist?
But
is that saying that women can never be tough because they don't have a pair? Well, they got a bigger pair.
Well, vagina is tougher.
So,
but I guess my question is that do you actually ever feel that because things are, let's say, optically better or superficially better, do you get the sense that people don't know how to deal with, like, when things get worse? Is that exactly what it is? Or is it just... I don't for one second think that, there are no racists. There's a different kind of racism now, almost like one that gets punished if it's too forward. Even that is debatable. But do you find that because you grew up in a much tougher place, Chicago and Winnipeg?
Oh, yeah. By the time I was 7, I knew every racial slur in the book.
Yeah. So in Toronto in 2018, I mean, maybe not the greatest example because things are so nebulous now with race and all that. But still, Toronto in 2018 is not like Chicago in the 70s. It's not Winnipeg in the 70s. It's not the poor part of town in Bangladesh in the 90s either, right? I'm actually treated like a human being 98% of the time.
Yeah. Now, I say you go up to Peterborough.
Yeah.
And watch that change.
Oh, I have.
You go to Owen Sound and watch that change.
Yep.
You go to Red Deer, Alberta and watch that change.
Immediately. I mean, just 3 weeks ago, I did a show at Comedy Bar.
Okay.
Show went well. It was a mixed audience, mixed lineup. After the show, me, Hisham Kaladi, you know him?
I know the name. I can't place the
African black dude from Eritrea. It was me, him, and I forget somebody else. And then these two white women who were at the show, they were older too. I would say they were in the 50s.
Okay.
Came by, they had a good time. But one comment they said was kind of stuck with me. They said that so many, and they were specifically talking about like a woman on the show. They were saying that she was funny, but none of those jokes would work in Alberta. And, in my head, I'm like, you're actually right. Because when I thought about her set, it was very like, left-wing, political, nuanced about issues that people only think about in the city.
Let me tell you something. They don't even want to recycle on Alberta. So
I don't want to recycle either, so I get it.
Well, I'm a fiend for it. I mean, but the point is that, yeah, a whole lot of shit won't go. I mean, okay, I don't know if you were living here then, but man, I've been an activist. When they were trying to ban anybody from wearing a turban, into the Legion and into the RCMP, I was doing material addressing that.
Yeah.
And also there was a teacher near Red Deer that was teaching kids the Holocaust never happened. So I said, gee, I'm glad he didn't get a chance to teach Afro-American history. He'd say those blacks stole those ships. They rode over here looking for gold jewelry and white women. So
they made us work for them. Like, oh my God.
They stole them slave ships. Somebody told them they were Cadillacs, and they jumped in and rode all the way here. So I was doing that type of material, and I'd say if I ever won a huge lottery, I'd buy all the legions in the country, and you wouldn't be allowed to enter unless you were wearing a turban.
Yeah.
And there were Stan Thompson, who's he's very much of a right wing kind of guy, but he's lovable. He goes, I was gonna go start the car because I thought for sure shit was gonna go down.
Oh wow, when was this? 90s?
80s.
80s. Oh,
and
okay.
And then when I got to the killer filthy stuff I do, they were all eaten out of my hands by the end of the night.
Because you set the bar so high with the initial premise.
Well, I made them dislike me at first, and then by the time I got to, wanting to, eat a fat girl's bum, he's all right for one of them. Right. But I mean, Fairview, Alberta, I did a show where after the show, a guy comes up and says, the bartender said you're the biggest, funniest nigger we ever seen, and you are the biggest, funniest nigger I've ever seen.
He was white, I assume?
Yeah.
Oh,
and then I sold him 2 cassette tapes at $10 a piece. So that's my price. For $20, I overlook your racist and your ignorance.
Okay.
But he didn't mean an insult. He was told that because that's what I would have been called by them people.
Yeah.
And I was described as big, so they knew I wasn't a little guy to pick with. And also the funniest.
Right.
So
it's funny because anything anybody says, I'll forget if they told me I was funny.
Yeah,
like I'll just forget
that's own vanity.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
also he was honestly repeating how I was described.
So it's context.
Yeah.
Okay, so see, that's I guess a lot of comics and even just regular people these days. The argument is that you should know better now. Even if you go to Peterborough, you go to Owen Sound, and the people
know better
but
if your mama and daddy didn't know
exactly. So if they didn't know better, and you are a comedian, is it your job now? I would say yes, to kind of make them see that.
I used to think that was my job, and then my gigs fell, and my audience turnouts fell.
When you did what?
When I went from basically, I guess after my first daughter was born, I really went for more social commentary and political humor. And before, people were lined up to hear the filth from the Raging Bull of Comedy, or the Lord of the Pig Boys, and all the other nicknames I had.
Yeah.
And then when I went more political and more social commentary, I wasn't getting the lineups anymore. I lost a portion of fans.
Did you notice if it was a specific kind of fan? Were you losing more white fans, more black fans, more like women, more men?
All the time anyway.
Okay.
But there weren't a lot of them. I used to say when the Nubian show started, if there were 4 blacks in the audience, 3 of them had to be Ronnie Edwards' relatives. Because back in the day, it was rare when you got 2 black people in an audience at a comedy show in this
Black
country.
people didn't go to comedy or didn't think of it as a viable entertainment?
I guess both. I guess they, and there was nobody that there was any. I mean, they could relate to Ronnie, Evan Carter, Eugene Clark, Greg Morton, and myself.
That's 5 black comedians
across the country, from one coast to the other.
Yeah.
So. So more often, like I remember when the Nubian show first started, people were saying, well, what if we had an all-white show? How would that feel? And I said, you ain't got to call it that, because if me, Ronnie, and Evan ain't on it, it's all white, bitch.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you started the Nubian show in the 90s or 80s? 80s. And
no, 95, I think.
Okay,
So it's almost 20. It's 24 years.
Right. So you had at that point been doing comedy for almost 20 years. Even.
I had the Now cover twice.
Yeah.
I'd already established myself as one of the better comics in the country, and
then you got the gig with Yucks. Is that where the first Nubian was?
Well,
at Yucks.
It was the first Nubian show, but not the first black comedy show.
Oh.
The first black comedy show, there was this dude named L.A. Fisher.
Okay.
And he did a show with myself, Ronnie, a friend of mine from Buffalo named Jamelia Thomas, and some rap acts, and that was at the Opera House.
Okay.
So I was talking about fitting the description, and I was talking about, carding and what have you. And the audience was responding, and it was the first time that I had a primarily black audience to finally, because I've had fights over me wanting to do my anti-racial material.
Yeah.
You know, obsessive. You know, white folks, some very sensitive motherfuckers.
Tell me about
it. when you put a mirror up to them, especially if you go, look. So it was the first time I had a predominantly black audience respond. And I went, whoa! And I'd already seen Def Jam in the States. So then the next time when I had a larger than usual black audience was when I opened for Chris Rock at the Phoenix.
Oh shit, nice.
And they had to move him from somewhere else, and they didn't even know how to plug him, how to advertise. So they referred to him as the black guy from Saturday Night Live, and he had just lost his Saturday Night Live gig.
Oh my god!
So I mean, they could have said CB4, they could have named all those other things, but they didn't, right?
Oh my god! And if you're on SNL, you would think they remember your name.
No, because he's the black guy from. If you weren't Eddie, you were the only black guy from Saturday Night Live they're gonna remember.
Shit.
You know, you couldn't even remember. You know, a lot of people couldn't remember Garrett Morris's name if you weren't original SNL fans.
And this is early '90s. You're talking about, like or like late. If it's Eddie, it's late '80s.
Late '80s, early '90s.
Yeah. So
Chris thought his career was over. You know, and that's what got me my first cover of Now magazine, and they were saying I deserved to have my own concert series, and you almost thought things were going to happen, but me in Canada, it didn't. But it was so great. My friend Clifton Joseph, who's a poet and an activist and a broadcaster, he walked with me to the gig. I had like $47 in the bank, and there's another couple of managers from LA that were there, and they were saying, well, you don't have any vulnerability. If you showed more vulnerable, your material's world class, but you're nothing vulnerable. And I said, I can't afford to be vulnerable.
So when they're saying vulnerable, they're saying don't attack us, attack yourself.
Or smile more.
Right. Like don't reflect your experience, essentially. Like if you're not being vulnerable, if you're being angry and you're talking about it, it's because that's what you're channeling. That's what's in you.
And I refused, and it took me years to learn how to smile on stage because I didn't want to be one of them grinning, shuffling comics.
Right.
So I even took laughing at something I said or smiling as a bad thing to be.
Yeah, that's an interesting, because I've often been told that it's not a good idea to smile or laugh at your own joke on stage, but I think it really comes down to your kind of personality, like your body.
This past weekend in Niagara Falls, I was grinning my ass off.
Yeah, of course. But like, okay, so I just wanted to go back to you said you had 3 or 4 black people in your audience, if that, right? If that. But when you had an all-black show, suddenly the material that was not doing so well under like a normal audience,
with a white mainstream crowd,
exactly, it was doing extremely well. I totally understand that, because when I am in front of a brown audience, or even like a multi-ethnic audience, I find that there are things that we both understand innately.
Their experience, what they can relate to. In fact, when the Nubian show first started, we had very few black comics. It was so funny though. I kept hearing by the guys that were like in charge of the Monday nights, amateur night, or the doorman, you ought to see this guy, he sets your race back 10 years. And then I seen Mr. Mo, and I said, well, Mr. Mo don't set the race back. That's what I do when I drink, goddammit. I said, Mr. Mo just doesn't know how to tag a joke.
Okay. But were they harsher on him because he was black?
Kadar, all of them were catching it. And then Russell Peters, he was on the first Nubian show.
Yeah.
Because I said, because I used to say when people would pick on Indians or Pakistanis, they'd say something, and I said, you don't say that shit in front of me, because there's a joke was Pakis is just niggas with straight hair, so don't you try to pull that with me.
Wow. Wow. Classic. I'm gonna use that.
Well, because when I lived in Winnipeg, there were Indian dudes that were getting their hair permed and trying to pass as black with them fake afros. So that's how bad it was for an Indian and for in East Indian.
In Winnipeg?
Yes,
really?
Them dudes was up there. They were throwing their hair to try and pass off as some kind of negroid.
That's so funny because there's a big problem with brown guys now thinking that they're black. You know, trying to be very hip hop.
Well, it's only when they do. Well, that was one of the beautiful thing about Russell. Because, you know, somebody says, well, he's not black. I said, yeah, but he's got that hip-hop sensibility.
Well, yeah, but he's not, you know, like...
Plus, he was a DJ, and all of his friends growing up in Brampton, you know, he was friends with the blacks and with everybody.
That comes to him naturally. I guess what I'm saying is that lately, I mean, this is a kind of point of conversation in a lot of, I guess, left-wing circles, is that specifically when it comes to music, there's a lot of non-black people trying to like use the N-word, trying to behave in a way that is not really consistent with their experience, right? Like my experience in Toronto is not the same as yours at all.
No.
You know what I mean? I actually, you know, benefit from racism because there's also like almost benevolent racism where there's like positive
City TV just stopped hiring black folks and hired all brown.
Yeah, exactly. There's
like
brown
Richard
people
Pryor
on TV
said about the Vietnamese, they got some new niggas here. So,
well, that's what I mean. So like
the brown people are the new niggers.
Well, even with that, there's so much that you can slip by. Like I do a bit where, like, I mean, I stopped doing it because it was aired already. But basically, I talk about how, you know, if I smell like weed on the bus and I want to throw off the scent, that it's not me. I stand next to a black guy because everybody assumes it's him and not me, even if he's dressed better than me.
But it was the Indian that brought the weed to America.
Was it really?
Well, I know you can't say that. Well, no, but originally when they first started banning reasons for making marijuana illegal, they said they were about them. Some of the stuff I've read, they were worried about them Hindus getting them white girls all high.
Right.
Then you got your Mexicans, and of course then your jazz musicians.
Reefer madness, is that what it was called?
That,
right, yeah. Weed is a way for like people of color to take over almost, or it gave us super strength or something.
Or back in the 50s, rock and roll, jazz, rhythm and blues, and marijuana was all communist plot to overthrow the morals.
Whatever the problem was, weed was
American society.
Well, so society has evolved a lot, right?
Morals
so I
have
find
really gone down. Yeah.
You think evolved, de-evolved. You know, if things are kind of going back to a more rough era, because we've had, and I don't think this is up for contention, is that we've had a real problem with political correctness from the mid 2000s, right? For like 2012 onwards, it was overcorrecting itself.
They've been trying to ban me and boycott me way before that.
Well, so that happened in the 90s as well.
Poor Ronnie Edwards didn't know what the word homophobic meant till the first time they chased him off the stage and seized the mic from his hand, and he called because he did some, you know, he did some gay joke, and he called me up. Yeah, I could hear him slugging on the bottle of tequila at 80, and it was like 1988, 88, 89. And he goes, they said it was homophobic. What the fuck does homophobic mean? And I said, means you can't tell no more gay jokes, just like folks can't tell no more nigga jokes.
Right.
I said, what do you think I've been ducking the past few years? But that was good because I went and read Camille Pagliera because, you know, I said, well, let's get a little bit of some feminist philosophy into our background. But then, of course, she's the anti-feminist feminist. So that really wasn't the right book. But, you know, I started picking up other books to read. The Male Eunuch. I started reading these things to increase my knowledge and my awareness of things.
So, exactly. And to have more of a range, right?
Yeah, but none of that helped me get Just for Laughs again. But, you know, it's like when I started doing workshops with comics, I tell them, read, increase your knowledge, increase your vocabulary, and increase you know, the subject matter that you can talk about, or that you're knowledgeable about.
Yeah, I was just talking with a comedian about this where, you know, there's no reason why you cannot do a corporate, a dirty show, a clean room, an inclusive room, or whatever, as long as you have the range to do it.
Yeah.
And you don't pick fights with the producers who put on these shows.
Yeah.
Right? Like my show, like Your Hood's a Joke, you've been on it. It's no holds barred, XXX rated. You say what you want to say.
There's some hurtful shit said on your show.
Very hurtful things.
I had friends in the front row going, you hear that motherfucker?
Exactly. We're talking about people's backgrounds, where they're from, and their countries, right? But at the same time, I also do a lot of inclusive shows, like shows where you're specifically not allowed to like make fun of somebody because of X, Y, Z, right? So I treat that like a corporate gig where they give you a list of reasons, they pay you better, but because they give you a list of reasons why they pay you better. Not so much.
I've missed that train on corporates, and the only thing I can think of is because when I first started out to be a comic, Never heard of anything called a corporate gig.
Yeah, yeah,
Never
yeah.
thought of it.
Yeah.
Never, and then when they sent me a couple of them, it's like, okay, we did it, but they weren't fun.
Exactly.
Even when I do political material for a corporate gig, you can alienate the entire audience with your first line.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess there's a question of HR and all that, but like what I mean is, there's almost this there's this idea that if you do one, you are the mortal enemy of the other. Like if you do a dirty show, there's a lot of people who just go off and talk shit about all these other safe rooms and inclusive rooms and things like that, right? Because the way I see it is, it's not the people who go to these shows, people who go to a safe room, don't go to a comedy club. In fact, they don't go to stand-up comedy at all because they're too. I just say it. They're too sensitive for a comedy club environment, but they like the safe nature of an inclusive room where they know that these things are not going to be talked about and they're not going to feel out of place, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been in a safe room.
Well, it's not. It's not what people would think because people are there to laugh. I just did the Shade Festival a couple weeks ago with Dave Marhaj, and he destroyed. Right? Because I mean, it helps not to be white. First of all, in a room like that, you get a lot more leeway. But what I also noticed is that those people, now I have like a separate, almost like a group of followers who I would have never been able to reach with the material I normally do because they would never have even considered me. They would have just written me off as, oh, he's just another comic who thinks he's edgy. But like making an effort to kind of speak to them has made them appreciate me for this side. They still see all the other stuff I post and they just don't interact. They don't care. They come to see me when I'm in their space. So I don't see like why that is necessarily mutually exclusive, like if you do like let's say the Corner Comedy Club and you say all kinds of shit you want and you go over to the Rivoli to do Shade and you do a completely different set, isn't that helping the comedian? Like,
well, it's all a matter of how much material you have in your pockets. Okay, here's another perfect example. When I first got my comics, I was mostly political and social commentary on that one, and I was doing
this is the show on the Comedy Network, Comics
with CBC originally.
Okay, CBC. Okay.
And then so I was doing material about violence against women and no means no. And and so for about an hour I was a darling of the feminist set. And then so I do another fundraiser, and somebody comes up and violence against women is never funny. So they come up to I'm sorry you watched your daddy beat your mama, but, I had this professor from University of Winnipeg says, Kenny speaks to the good old boys by being a good old boy.
Right.
But then so I had these other ones that belong in safe comedy spots going, never should you talk about it.
Exactly, right.
So I'm going, well, never should I talk about it. And I said, well, fuck you then. I'm just not talking to you anymore.
Well, so
they lost an ally.
No, but isn't that
or maybe I wasn't the ally they wanted.
But that's what I mean. Isn't that, and then it's a good thing that now there's a separate scene almost for not just audiences like that, but also comedians like that. So in a way, isn't that increasing the number of people who are coming to live shows? Like these people would not have come to Yuck Yucks on a Friday ever.
Or a Nubian show.
Or Nubian or your.
Then they do me no good.
Yeah.
So it's so they don't exist in my world.
Okay, so that's what I was trying to get at. Like, do you? I wanted to see.
Do I hate them? No, I don't know about them. They don't exist. It's like festivals that don't book me. They don't exist.
That's what I meant. Like,
you with me or you against me? If you ain't with me, then I don't know who you are, and I got nothing good to say. But I'm old now. I'm 60 and I'm mature. So it's not that I don't have anything good to say about you. I got nothing to say about you.
Okay,
I've spent my time crying, cursing, begging, going there with hat in hand, vowing revenge, whatever. All that is done.
Yeah, no, I've been there. I'm like, oh, you didn't book me, I will show you. And I didn't show them. I didn't show them anything.
No. So, or as the Jews do this thing, I set Shiva for them. You're officially dead to me.
Yeah.
And after you're dead, I try not to mention you anymore.
Right.
And when somebody else cries about what you've done, I go, well, they're dead. What are you crying about?
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. That's what I mean is you don't. So I guess your philosophy is like, don't do it, don't care. You can do whatever you want in those shows. It doesn't really concern you unless I guess they come for you. Have you had that?
Well, like I said, I had it in the 80s.
Okay, but not maybe in the last 5 years. Have you had audience members go like, this is wrong. You're
one of the best I had was in Niagara Falls years ago when the Yucks were still in the casino. I was doing pro-Obama stuff, and some guy walked out, and he was arguing with the manager going, I've never heard such liberal shit in my entire life. And I'm going, my God, all the people that over the first 35 years I walked for being offensive, this is the first time I've had somebody walk because I was a liberal.
too liberal, yeah.
And I'm going, so where are the gigs coming my way now? I said, well, nowhere. And then they said, don't offend the Americans in the audience.
Right. Well, it's kind of, I've had not the exact, but like, so if I make a Doug Ford or Donald Trump jokes, I got all these like middle-aged white dudes coming after me.
Fuck them.
Exactly. But then,
as Richard Pryor said on Donahue years ago, when some white woman stood up and says, "We love Amos and Andy. We love them and thought they were funny and don't know why you're so against them." And Pryor said, "That's because you're old and you're gonna die soon." So I'm saying to you, when these people get upset because you told a Trump or a Ford joke, you're old and you're gonna die soon.
Yeah.
Go get some more dollar beers and go to one of his things, and that cheeseburger he gives you is gonna harden up that heart, and you're gonna kick over dead soon.
Exactly, perfect there.
Dinosaurs.
Yeah. Well, there's those guys.
He says as he looks at his ground beef right there.
But see, I guess what I find is the similarity between the people on the right who protest jokes and people on the left who protest jokes.
I find the left less tolerant.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean,
at least the right say, let him say his piece, then we'll hang him.
Exactly.
Whereas with the left, if you don't follow their official party line, they do it like Stalinists. They want to cap you in the back of your head and charge your family for the bullet.
I've been banned from so many groups for some really innocuous stuff, I have to say.
Like who banned you?
Well, I have this joke where I talk about getting my dog from an animal shelter, and in the shelter, they kill a lot of, like, insane cats. Like, that's what the other thing they do is they kill a lot of insane cats. So the guy who does it, I told him you get paid to slay mad pussy.
Okay.
All right? It's just a little pun, whatever, no big deal. So I got in trouble.
Who came at you on that one?
A whole bunch of people online. They're like, that is
animal
violent.
Lovers, or were they feminists? Or
they call me violent misogynist because I was using the term slay to describe. I'm like, but it's a phrase. I didn't make this phrase.
Yeah.
So,
but you used it, which makes you one of the lowest people ever.
And the other angle I've noticed is, and it's usually, if not always, white women who'll first ask me what my credentials. They'll ask if I'm gay or not, as if that changes whether they should listen to me. I'm like, no, I'm straight. They'll tell me what their identity is. And one time, this woman even told me all the places she's a member of this board, that board. And in my head, I'm thinking, are you listing all your influence just to kind of imply that you can ruin my career if you wanted to? Because that's the.
Or are you telling me you could hire me?
It was definitely not, because she was very upset with a joke I did. And she was like, I'm this, I'm that, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to ruin anything. But I'm like, but you are threatening me with the end of my career. Whereas those people online who hate my Donald Trump or Doug Ford jokes, they just threaten my life, which I know they won't do. Right. But you could ruin my career. So what's the difference between a white lady telling me not to do this joke?
You don't know when to drop that race card on one of them? Then you pull that out like a gun.
That's exactly what I did. That's exactly what I did. That's literally. I'm like, listen, you're a white lady telling a brown guy what he can or cannot say, and she shut up immediately.
And you say, who benefited more from affirmative action than anybody? White women.
Yes.
Don't pull that shit on me.
Well, there's that. There's a lot of infighting I find based on identity, and it's.
Oh, you can't even get within the feminism, the black feminists and the white feminists, and So I mean, even within their own ranks.
Well, that's called. There's a term for that. It is called white feminism. It lacks intersectionality. It doesn't account for the fact that your skin color has helped you. Even if you're a woman, your skin color has been a very big privilege.
I wonder how many people's ears are just exploding right now.
Oh, I'm going to get mail.
Good.
I always do.
Good.
But that's, I had a couple of weeks ago, I had a couple of brown girls in here, and they were specifically talking about this, where, if you are a woman of color, your experience as a woman is very different than a white woman, right? So when a lot of these gains that happen in modern society, they tend to disproportionately advantage white women first.
Yes.
Because they're able to simultaneously use power and oppression as a tool. They're like, well, we are women, so we've been like oppressed, which is true, but we're also white, so we're the first in line to get the benefits.
I'm gonna fire my maid. I'm so upset.
I've been having these conversations more and more, and lately I've noticed that there's a bigger turn towards common sense. Like lately, I guess I have noticed less because I hang out in these circles so much more.
It's gonna suck your soul out of your body.
Too late, already done. But like,
you're gonna be a very sad old man, not knowing what you think
exactly,
or if you can think it anymore.
But like, I have noticed a softening because I think they're finally understanding that constantly telling other people what they can or cannot say, especially when you had the privilege of going to school, living at home, studying all this theory, while most other people are going multiple jobs. They don't have time to educate themselves on these nuances. Not to mention, they're not intentionally trying to anger you. You just have more education than somebody, and they don't seem to.
That's why Hillary lost the election.
100% is a lot of elitism, a lot of
elitism,
better.
And they weren't. She didn't go to Michigan and Ohio and Wisconsin where the factories were closed. And a lot of these people really weren't that voted for Trump. They didn't give a damn about same-sex marriage. They didn't give a damn about immigration. He said they're going to bring back some jobs.
People vote with their pocketbooks.
And that's what they heard. They heard jobs.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't think the people that voted for the fathead that's in office now cared so much. They didn't vote. I don't think got any votes for dollar beer.
No, I doubt it.
You know,
there's a lot of it,
and as quiet as it's kept, I think most of his support for the getting rid of the sex education in the schools came from immigrant families.
Yeah, immigrants are socially conservative.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
And I know the last thing a Muslim family wants to hear is their children being told that homosexuality is normal and acceptable.
Exactly.
Because they don't want to hear that. So but people want to hear about not paying for these taxes. So what has he done? So right now they're all crying because he eliminated. He's cutting with the welfare.
Yeah.
Okay, and then, but what else he did, which made me giggle, is no longer are we subsidizing these bastards that get these $80,000 electric cars that the Wynn government was subsidizing. So that's dropped out too. So he cut out the subsidies for the wealthy who can afford
a Tesla, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. Those things are expensive.
Yeah. Well, Wynn is saying, well, if we build this and we build all these free recharging centers or what have you, so. Old fathead there, he knocked that. So who did he hit again? The elite. So, but see, so maybe he is the working class guy.
Well, I mean,
working class is. But Kennedy was a son of a millionaire, and he was the savior of the widow, of the poor, and the oppressed.
So was Buddha. Buddha was a prince. He was a prince who gave up everything to sit in the woods.
And for all practical purposes, didn't Nelson Mandela get to go study in England?
Yeah, no. Gandhi was also very.
Yes. So you need them. You need those radicals without a blouse to drop down and make a difference.
Well, if you think of Doug Ford, I don't know if he is he talks like a working class guy, but he inherited a millionaire's business, right? He is a trust fund kid.
Yeah.
He did, he's got all these stories about, dealing hash, not to mention.
He wanted to make his own way in the world.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't have any problems with people selling drugs for a living. I'm totally fine with that.
It's when they shoot up the neighborhood for control.
Exactly. Yeah. But with Doug Ford, I've noticed that, similar to Donald Trump, the people who have voted for either of these guys, they know these people are wealthy, but they think they're like them in personality.
Yeah.
Right? They don't. When you tell somebody who voted for Ford, well, he's a rich guy, he's not really, a working class dude, they're like, yeah, I know, but he sounds like one. He understands, or at least superficially claims to understand.
Like, what about Obama?
Well, Obama, let me ask you, what do you think about Obama? Like, do you think he got voted in just because of his color of his skin, or was he actually qualified? Because I thought he was qualified. Yeah, exactly.
But, and the thing is, the color of his skin made the blacks that usually wouldn't have voted jump up and go, here's ours.
Yeah.
But like my friend Clifton hates him. Clifton goes, he's a war criminal.
He is. He's a president of the United States.
Well, who said the black president was not supposed to drop some bombs?
Exactly.
What, because he's a brother means he's just supposed to ignore the foreign enemies of this country?
He's going to get shot in the head if he doesn't do what the system tells him to do,
but
too.
That was also his job. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
So why do they think because he was a brother, he wasn't going to do his job?
Well, Obama.
Remember the big thing with him was, that phone clock at 3 a.m?
Yeah.
Obama made them calls at 3 a.m. Take him out. Get Bin Laden. We found him. Take that bastard out.
Exactly.
We're not going to notify the Pakistani government that we are going in their country with a sovereign nation without permission or authorization or notification.
They will
we
say
found
no.
the motherfucker and let's do him.
Well, with Obama, his progressive cred, which he had, I guess, for the first couple of years of his term.
He still was, but his problem was he tried to be nice and he tried to play.
He kind of both sides almost a little bit.
No, he thought he could be that bridge.
Well, that's what I mean. Like he was trying to be this middle ground who's going to take all the best things about America and move them forward. Be like, this is how we should be. This is the idea of America. But the office of the President of the United States doesn't necessarily allow you to be so altruistic, right?
No, you're still the boss of the thing, right?
Yeah.
You still got to do boss shit.
He deported more people than George Bush. He increased the drone strike program more than any other president.
Well, see, let's define that differently. He used the
he used the drones.
Yes, he used it more than any other. Also, he managed to same time pull those troops out of those countries, and he had a smaller amount of American body bags coming home.
Yeah. Well, see.
So, but they don't mention that. It's like Clifton says, "What about all them people he droned?" I'm cool with that. They was enemies. Who said the black prez ain't supposed to whack no enemies?
Well, when he withdrew forces from Afghanistan and Iraq, he got a lot of flack from Republicans who are now praising Trump for not going to war because that's not a good, we shouldn't be in war at all. So obviously Obama was the victim of a double standard when it came to...
he said, let's not go into Syria, let's lead from behind. Or Libya.
Yeah, Libya. Well, that's a whole conversation, man. Libya and Obama and all that, they created ISIS. First and foremost in Libya.
Well, no. Actually, I say the Bush administration created ISIS by going in and creating the environment, because ISIS was nothing but the leftovers of Saddam.
Yeah, they were just
and Al Qaeda that survived.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're all the guys that were officers in Saddam's regime and the military that lost their gigs once Saddam fell.
Yeah, well,
when they eliminated when they erased the Iraqi army, right?
Yeah, exactly. All these guys with weapons and training had somewhere to go, and and obviously they're not the best people.
That was still W.
But so here you got Obama being blamed for a lot of Bush's issues, with the economy and all that, and obviously now retroactively with Trump blaming him for something. Do you ever, or did you ever look at Obama during his presidency and be like, that's what it felt like to be you as a comedian in the 80s?
No.
A black comic in the 80s.
No, because Obama would have done corporate gigs.
No, I just... True. But I mean, I'm talking about the double standard, being subjected to something.
For years, I felt like I was the only guy dirty in the country.
Yeah.
And now I sit back and I hear all kinds of fiffling, fuffing, C words being dropped and everything. And I'm going damn, they must have they rewrote the rule book. When did I sleep when they rewrote the rules?
But you said that you lost gigs when you started going more political, right?
I lost my...
What?
I lost my Ford Trump follow.
When did that happen?
It happened after I got Just for Laughs because...
Is it the 90s we're talking about? Yeah,
89, 90.
89, 90, you got Just for Laughs. You had been doing a certain kind of...
I was doing Blue.
Blue, okay.
But also, I was doing material about capital punishment and gun control.
Okay.
And Andy Nolman, God bless these Jewish people that tell a Negro how much he can be.
That's not me.
He told me, he said... You know what? You're not all pussy. You're not all dick. You have some thought behind you. So I don't know. I don't know if you were ever an asshole in school, but you ever get that teacher that told you don't have to be a clown, you can be a leader?
Yes.
Well, Andy Nolman said, you are so much more than just a filthmonger, Kenny.
Right.
And I said, by God, I'm gonna be so much more than a filthmonger.
Okay.
And then all the people from Rochester to Alberta to everywhere, they said, well, gee, why is he doing all this stuff about beating your wife? And it said all my wife-beating fans that didn't want to hear me change and address it.
So they were okay when you were talking about it superficially, but not when you were really unpacking it.
When I got back to talking about it, as opposed to, I used to do a bit about putting a girlfriend's head in the window, closing it so she can't get away when I do her in the butt.
Okay.
So, which never happened, but it was some dopey Christmas Eve thought that I had. I
Right,
said, well,
right.
let's shock them with this one.
Right. All right.
So when I was doing more no means no, or the white ribbon, or the white ribbon's useless. What you do is you take a white cue ball, you put it in a white sweat sock, and you whap them in the head so they hear white noise.
Okay.
So when it went from locking a woman's head in the window, to beating a guy on the street that you see is beating a woman.
Yeah.
Not wear the white ribbon. Ike Turner, you're politically incorrect. You got to take physical action on these guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I went from the one to the other, I lost the ones that loved me to hear me put somebody's, to hear some bum sex stuff.
Oh God.
And I lost a lot of them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally get that. So because
but Andy Nullman said you can be so much more than that. And what have I become? I mean, I've become a mentor.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess, which isn't what I want it to be.
But the reason that's very interesting to me because 89, 90, political comedy was big. Wasn't Bill Hicks still around? We're talking about the late 80s.
Well, he was in England, so he missed a lot of it.
Carlin?
I'll tell you what was big. Well, Carlin's always been big. I'll tell you what was big. Banning Dice, banning Sam Kinison. That's when the shit hit the fan.
Okay.
I remember when I opened for Chris Rock at the gig here. Apparently, he also played a university in Ottawa or Kingston, and they booed him off the stage. And I remember this guy going, he'll never play Queens again. I'm going, you got that right?
Yeah.
And now you got to pay $100 plus to see Chris Rock.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And he ain't playing Queens anymore. But I remember this Queens students, he'll never be here again.
Yeah. Well, if they're not, that's their loss, really. And Queens, we're talking about Kingston, Ontario?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Well,
and there's also one in Ottawa, too, where they booed him off. So he went from doing the gig at the Phoenix to doing those two universities. And
yeah, no more. Well, he even lately, last couple of years, he mentioned that he stopped doing school gigs, right? Because you can't really, as a comedian, almost not even understand where you quote unquote fucked up because the logic is sometimes like so out of your knowledge. Right? You're like, well, you said this, that, and the other, and this is wrong because of all these reasons. And
I don't worry about any of that. I walk out, go, I'm Kenny Robinson. I'm the only Kenny Robinson I know. There is another comic. He now put his name Kenny Lee Robinson. I think he works at South. He's kind of a Christian comic. I said, but I'm coming out, and when you go see Kenny Robinson, this is what you get. One of the funniest things was my first ex-wife. She was going to Fanshawe, and she was in a women's studies class. And a woman jumped up in her presentation, had footage of me. I think she wanted to make a big deal because I said that O.J. Simpson replaced Ike Turner as the number one bad boy against women. So she wanted to cause an outrage on this. And here is my ex-wife, now a lesbian and a feminist scholar. She stood up and said that she didn't say I was her ex-husband. She said, that is the father of my child. Reduced me to just a breeder. And she said, but he is also more progressive than 90% of the comics that are out here doing something. So the room got all quiet. And then she had to eat her lunch by herself after that.
Oh, my God.
She lost a lot of the Doc Martens didn't want to hang out with her anymore.
My God. Well, see, I do. That's amazing. Like today, that conversation, maybe even 6 months ago, would happen exactly the way you just said. She would make her point, she would defend you, and then she would get ostracized because nobody cares about the details.
Oh yeah,
yeah. They're just like superficial superficial analysis, superficial consequence.
And when I first found I was being banned, but usually behind some feminist groups at these schools, or putting a push behind it, I was hurt because I wasn't going to make that money. And then the way how I controlled my anger, and I said, well, you know what? I said, I have a daughter, I have an ex-wife, and I have an elderly mother. I said, all these have done is affect my ability to provide and help these women.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what they've done. And I didn't go crying to it, but I got some of my best relatives are women.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, my father died when I was 9. My mother and my aunt raised me, okay? And they were feminists before anybody had a title.
Yeah.
And if you didn't pull your boots up high enough, then you took the beating.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So
No, I'm in a similar boat in the sense that I was also raised by my mom, her sisters, my grandmother, right? Like, my biological dad wasn't really around.
Yeah.
So
they got deadbeats where you come from?
Fuck yeah. Deadbeat dads everywhere.
I thought that was just because of the slavery in America. But.
No, just dudes being dudes, leaving their families. But one thing that it's very interesting that you pointed out, because when they ban a comic, when they ban somebody like you, they are effectively reducing your ability to provide for your family. Obviously, a lot of them are women. Now, the counterpoint to that usually is, and it's not that it applies here, is that you shouldn't have to have a female relative to care about women's rights. Right? You shouldn't have to have a wife, a daughter, or whatever. You should just care about that because they're people.
But it opens your eyes to it.
Yeah, you are able to see it from a very different perspective. 100%. Like I would not have understood certain issues if a woman hadn't pointed out. Like, my favorite one is that how crimes are reported about women. Right? You know, like last year, there was this headline that read, 2 women were raped in some campus somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Whereas what it should read, but what
why do all the rapists like to go to York?
Oh, I went to York. It's a bad place.
It is.
It is a bad place. But what this one pointed out to me was that all these crimes are reported as if something happened to these women by magical elves. What it should say is bunch of men raped these women.
Yeah.
Not that women got raped. They were standing around and they just
got raped.
But now
you can't say white man raped them, black man raped them, brown man raped them.
No, but the thing is, what I'm trying to get to is this is something that I have never noticed in my entire life, how a passive sentence structure is taking away what really happened.
Yeah.
Right? Like, your house didn't just get robbed, people robbed it. Right? So a woman didn't just get attacked. A man attacked her.
Yeah.
And that's how it... And when we don't use the active form of a sentence, when we use it passively, we almost subconsciously put the blame on her.
Well, that's like out east, there were wars between native fishermen and white fishermen.
Oh, okay. Huh?
And they said was a non-native fishermen were seen burning down some boats in the harbor. So I said, why don't you just say white? If they was non-native, then what was they? They was your team.
Exactly. No, that's exactly what I mean.
Why you got to say non-native?
No, this is language. That's why. Like, I try to keep an open mind when somebody's pointing out something that my initial reaction, I guess, just as a comic, is fuck you. Don't tell me what to do. I have to kind of keep that down just to listen.
That's why I started reading, and that's why
exactly. So
well, the thing is though, but until somebody that is a victim is close to you, you really don't understand it. It wasn't until my mother had her leg amputated and I had to push that damn wheelchair all around did I say, man, not every building's got ramps.
Exactly.
Some of these bitches, it's how many buildings ain't got automatic doors?
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I was pushing that damn wheelchair trying to figure out how to get my 80-year-old plus mom into someplace did I say, man, we really need some better place for the handicap. Or another perfect example, last night I was watching the movie Giant, Rock Hudson, James Dean's last movie.
Okay, yeah.
3 and Out, and Elizabeth Taylor. So both James Dean and Rock Hudson make some racist shit about Mexicans, wetbacks.
Oh, right.
Calling them wetbacks, and James Dean becomes wealthy, and he doesn't want any no wetbacks can come inside his hotel, and Rock Hudson keeps. But then his son, Rock Hudson's son, who didn't want to be a cowboy but wanted to be a doctor, played by Dennis Hopper.
Yeah.
Oh man, such a great film. Anyway, he marries a Mexican woman, so for the longest time, he refers to his grandson, not as his grandson, as that little wetback.
Oh, shit.
Then when he's in a restaurant and they're saying no more of this wealthy stuff, let's just get back to Lukenbach, Texas, that he sees a Mexican family that is not being allowed, the guy's throwing them out. And he realized, well, yeah, I got to stand up for my little wetback grandchild.
Yeah.
and all these backs.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and he still referred to him as that afterwards. And at the end of the movie, Liz Taylor is saying, you always want to be my hero with your roping and your riding. And says, but you were never more of a hero to me than when you were laying on your back getting your ass kicked at Sarge's diner.
No, absolutely. Empathy is a crazy thing, right? You don't really have it until you have it.
Right. So it wasn't until he realized that could equally be, pointed at. That's why I could jump up when I, because I heard the N-word my entire life. So that's why I could say, no, you ain't fucking with Packies.
Yeah.
Because what are they? And guys, no, they're not the same. I'm going, no. It is the same. Or one time in high school in Winnipeg, there's these 3 Aboriginal brothers that got sent from the res to try and go to the high school I was at. So they'd walk down the hallway, and guys would yell "wagon burner" or make the woo noise at him. So I remember one time I'm sitting there, and one guy just did the wagon burner and the war whoop sound, and I slapped him. Just backhand. What the fuck? And I said, if I was new in this school, you'd be yelling nigger if it was me walking down the hall.
Yeah, exactly.
No. And there was no telling me he wasn't going to be that way. I just took it that way. He wasn't going to stand back.
Yeah.
And I said, now go say something to Prince.
Yeah.
And after that, me and these 3 boys, one of them froze to death on New Year's Eve, got drunk when they went trapping, and he got lost, passed out, and froze to death. But after that, me and these 3 brothers, we never discussed what happened.
Okay.
But whenever they see me, they nod and say hello.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
And it was never like, I ain't letting nobody talk about you guys. We never became friends or felt that need to like, hey, we're going to roll together.
But you understood. You had an understanding.
I understood. And they heard that slap. They heard that slap and looked over their shoulder and said, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Dude with the afro ain't having it.
Well, that's interesting because, as much as I'd like to blame everything on white guys, like, the rest of us have got a lot of issues ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, like, when you see something racist being done, let's say, in this case, it was a bunch of white dudes picking on these native guys, right?
Yeah. It was one white dude lipping off that time.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
But, like, do you ever find yourself having to confront, I don't know, an Asian guy, brown guy, even a black guy when they're doing something to, like, somebody who's a different race altogether? Because I've noticed a lot of, like, interracial sniping between groups lately, which kind of like boggles my mind, like when I hear like there's a lot of anti-blackness in brown communities, in Asian communities as well.
That's because y'all think we shoplift when we go into the store.
There's that. There's also I guess I can't speak for Asian communities, but with brown people, it's specifically colorism.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm darker than a lot of brown people. So they didn't like me.
Yeah.
Right. You are light skinned.
Oh yeah.
Did you find that affected your relationship with the black community?
Well, yeah. There used to be my favorite expression in Chicago was "leave the light skinned dude alone." I used to love to hear that because come here, little white nigger, or or whatever. So when I hear somebody say "leave the light skinned dude alone," even now there's memes about light skinned dudes be doing this and light skinned dudes be doing that. So
softer or something like that.
Yeah, poor Drake.
Yeah, Drake, exactly.
And yet Drake's name is associated to so many homicides.
Yeah.
As quiet as it's kept.
Yeah.
Either his concerts, his festivals, outside his restaurant, an
that
associate
nightclub
of his.
Shooting, all kinds of things.
An associate of his, somebody who opened for him. For somebody who's light skinned and soft, Drake got a cloud of doom following him.
But do you get like discriminated against from the black community for being light skinned?
Oh yeah. In fact, one time at a Nubian show, somebody yelled, "Are you even black?" And I said, "We come in many tones. If you knew something about your history, if you knew as much about your history as you knew about buying a weave, you'd know that." And part of the audience laughed, and the other part grabbed their chest because they couldn't believe I would just slap it down to that.
Of course. I mean,
I'm Kenny Robinson.
Yeah.
What am I? They're gonna walk. They're gonna roll. No.
Well, do you think being light skinned has helped you?
Yeah, I won't be an asshole and say that my light skin and my green eyes didn't open some doors.
You're part Ukrainian?
No, my mother's background was Norwegian, Danish.
Oh, okay.
So when I used to tell people, it ain't the black in me you need to fear. It's that Viking. It's them angry, vicious Viking killer rapist bloodline that you gotta fear. It's my Norse blood.
Yeah.
The black man is the loving side. The black man is the side that smiles and hugs.
Yeah.
It wants to know you. The white side of me is the one that wants to cut your head off and drink out of your skull.
That's hilarious. No,
You know, and then they look at me like, or here's, I mean, I've been lucky. Like, perfect example. Years ago in Saskatoon, there was a great Yucks club.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of the first clubs that had me headline on New Year's Eve, and I was making all kinds of money. So one night after a show around Christmas or shortly around New Year's, I ordered Chinese food for all the staff, all the comics, all the staff.
Okay.
Right. So the manager at the time, her husband was a big honcho in the motorcycle gang there.
Oh, okay.
And he's got to sit there because he's waiting for his girl to get off. I said, come on, man, grab a plate. He said, me too? I said, what, why not you two? So, you know, and we become friends. We call each other every Christmas.
Okay, yeah.
You know, and the thing is, he took me to the clubhouse, and there was a big silhouette of a black head with a slash through there. And he says, he says to this day when he introduced me to other bikers, Kenny was the first, and maybe still the only black that ever been inside that bike club's clubhouse.
Mm-hmm.
So
crap.
I felt good because I was able to open the door somewhat there. And I said, but that don't mean he's letting Ronnie Edwards in.
No. But did you find that you were making progress with somebody like that, like mentally? And
we call each other Christmas Day for 20 years. Did I make progress? Yes. Will he tell me a terrible anti-Semitic joke Christmas Eve?
Hell yes.
Yes. Do I laugh? Yes. Do I say shame on you? That ain't right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No.
But the point is that 1%er, badass biker boy and me, we hug each other when we see each other. He comes to my shows whenever I come to Saskatoon.
Okay.
When there was some racists that were going to chase after Greg Morton because they didn't like him talking on TV to a white woman being funny, and the guy was actually found in the hotel. But when I said, well, I got to make sure Morton's got some help, it was this cat I called up to say, well, why don't you just pop by the show 1 or 2 nights just to see that everything's cool with him?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so is he going to invite Morton to this thing? Maybe not. Probably not. But I knew when I said, hey, can I call you and you can watch out for my friend? I knew that he would.
Yeah, well,
so did we make progress? Yes.
For
Has
sure,
there been anybody else in that clubhouse of my hue since then? I don't know. Probably not.
Probably not. I mean, that's a good point because I've noticed even today.
Which means he accepted me as an individual and not by my race.
Exactly. He did.
The content of my lack of character.
Well, I found that
egg rolls and some sweet and sour chicken balls go a long way to brotherhood, man. Once you break bread with somebody, it's hard to have the same opinion of them.
Well, I find that today I have an easier time disagreeing with people on the right than I have disagreeing with people on the left. I actually have full-blown, reasonable conversations, even if I disagree with somebody. I've actually made friends with a lot of guys who are hardcore conservative. A couple of them shave their heads a lot, and I know they don't have to. So I'm like, I think you're kind of going for a skinhead look there. But even then, they look at me.
Plus, once you're at a certain age and you start to go bald,
you just kind of take it off.
You just go, better do this than a comb over.
Yeah, exactly.
But Hitler had a hell of a comb over, didn't he?
Oh yeah, and some other things. He combed over Europe. But yeah, I find that with people on the right, I've had a better shot of having a dialogue and even maybe communicating to them something that they didn't know, and vice versa. Whereas on the left, I found a complete shutdown.
Well, like I said, they were like
party
Stalinists.
line. It's party line or bust.
The minute you stray off from the party line, pop in the back of the head.
Yeah, it's kind of sad.
I've been saying that for 30 years now. I learned that in 1988. You know.
Well, so that's what I mean. Is like just like in the 90s now. After like this big swell of like this left-wing kind of bullying, I should say, over the last few years, now we've had a big backlash. Donald Trump, Doug Ford, racists on the streets, Nazis openly out there, and the worst part is they have like some kind of support, even from ordinary people who are just tired of being bullied, right? Obviously, a lot of these people, if you identify with the Nazi, you got something wrong with you. But the fact that
they had them nicest uniforms of any army in World War II, man.
That's the thing.
Them boots.
They were Hugo Boss, I think.
Yes.
Hugo Boss
designed that shit.
Yeah, so like,
whereas American surpluses wound up on on Fidel Castro's soldiers' back. How did that happen? I had to go to Cuba to learn that story. I made a movie in Cuba, and I got in trouble at the Trotsky Theater because we sat down in the seat during a break, and the guy from the party that was taking care of the theater said we were not party members, so we couldn't sit in those chairs. So I tried to explain NDP back in Toronto, but he didn't want to hear about that.
You okay? Well, when was the last Nubian show? A couple weeks ago?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
So, have you noticed any change in the atmosphere from the audience, like the way they react?
We're getting predominantly more Caucasian.
Okay.
They're not. The crowd has lost the ability to boo. The first 5 years.
It used to be scary.
Oh, the first 5 years, if you didn't bring your A game,
yes.
boo.
I've seen people get booed at Nubian.
Yeah, and I wish we still had that.
That's amazing.
Because I told them, I don't want you to accept the mediocrity that the white audiences have accepted. Because when I started the Nubian, I wanted to raise a master race of comics. Because one of the times when we tried to get booked into one of the yucks on the road, and the owner of the club said, well, if you brought 4 comics that were the level of you, then I would consider it. And I said, motherfucker, there ain't 4 comics the level of me in this country. So all of a sudden, I got to have 4 comics the level of me on one show.
No, you got to make them now.
Well, I got to, from having this. So now, you know, here's the thing. I'm very suicidal over my own lack of success, I find. You know, all I got to do is, go spend like a day or two with Russell. And I said, if you just had half this, you'd be all right, dude. And he was like, Russell, can I take back these bottles? I'll just leave my clothes here and put them in this luggage, and I'll take it back to the beer store. But then, Russell was one of the guys that I mentored. His first JFL, I had to take him aside and says, the white boys are going to freeze you out. Just go do your due. And he caught the shade that was throwing him, and he went and done his thing, because I already schooled him.
Yeah. He opened the door for guys like me also, and even for just brown people to go to comedy clubs. Similar to how you described maybe 4 or 5 black people in the audience.
Yes,
Before
absolutely.
Russell, there were 5 brown people in a comedy show.
Oh, I mean, we had my dear friend Jerry Bednob, who moved to L.A. a million years ago. He was an Indian from Trinidad, But when I look at the comics that are dominating this scene now, I swell with pride because, like Mirage, part of that Nubian crew.
Huge.
John Paul, part of that Nubian crew. Gavin Stevens, part of that Nubian crew. Then I look at, Trix, part of that Nubian crew. So, then I look at the white fellas, Paulie Walnuts. I mean, he's a weed comic, but he also can roll with that new, so I look and I stop and I think of how many we've embraced and we run with, and Chris Robinson and Paul doing their thing together. Once again, all part of that thing, So when I stop and I look at that, I go, yeah, man, you've done something special.
No, 100%. I was it wasn't that long ago I was talking to somebody about how the Nubian show has been to Canadian comedy the way the Daily Show was for all the employees there. Like the Daily, Jon Stewart created Colbert, Carell, Samantha Bee. All these, and
Trey Anthony.
All these people.
Trey Anthony just got hired by Oprah as a writer. So first time she did the Nubian show, the waitresses all want to quit because she put a blonde wig on and she did this bit about the white girl that's dating the black guy.
Oh God!
And says, don't listen to that black woman. I'm never gonna run you down because you don't have a job, or you have to use my credit card. I'm not like those black bitches that don't appreciate you. So a couple of the Caucasian women is upset about it. So then Raj Mirhaj, who is the manager, then goes, she can't do the show anymore. She can't say that. My waitresses are mad. So, man, I could be an asshole. I said, look, them waitresses' job is to serve them drinks. They don't dictate who I put on this show. And I said, if they quit, that's their business. I said, because the world needs more black female comics than they need white waitresses. What a terrible racist fucking thing to say. But I had to pull my gun and let them know. Of course. And then I hired her to write and perform on After Hours. So that was her first TV spot.
This was After Hours on the Comedy Network.
So that was her first television shot. I believe first time Leslie Jones got to do sketch was on After Hours.
Leslie Jones.
Yes.
Wow.
Kevin Hart, when he was little Kev, he did my TV show. He did the Nubian show 2 or 3 times.
Nice. Yeah. Well, see, that's what I mean. Like the Nubian show has catapulted. Like Dave Merhaj, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
He just did his Netflix taping
Yeah.
a couple of weeks ago. That's incredible. Like this show has made careers for like what 50, 60 comics since then. Like I have to say, not just the people who are doing Netflix special, people who are touring, people who have their own little, like their own brands.
I got more than 3 or 4 comics of color across the country now.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. I mean that by
and now
itself.
guess who don't work no more? The light skinned brother.
well, that's
the nature of the game. It's probably more ageism than anything else.
I mean, I'm very fascinated by Nubian because the way you've run the show and the way you've grown it is kind of like my instincts go in that nature. Also, I look for the long game more than like short gains. Right?
It's a tradition now.
Yeah, exactly. To create something that can sustain itself.
Yeah.
Outside of you, I think that's very important, right? Like if you were to not have done that and just done some seasons of some TV show and then go back on the road, like would you have been as satisfied with the outcome? Like
would have had more money, yes, definitely. I would have loved it. I'd trade all my tomorrows for a second. But you know what? Also, at the same time, I might have, I definitely would have used that crew more.
Okay, yeah. I mean, wouldn't that crew be guys like Dave? I'm sure they'll be happy to do your show anytime.
Oh, yeah,
Dave's,
absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you have, you've created all these, comedians who have their own followings now, right?
Well, I wouldn't say I created them, but I gave them a soapbox. I gave them a showcase, a spotlight.
No, you're right. Like kind of like boosted them, gave them, the spotlight. So
nurtured them when I could, spank them when I had to.
Have you thought of doing like a best of show? Like all these yucks that are around. Like if you did like a best of Nubian and only had 2 or 3 people who could do 20 minutes and tour that across the country.
We've tried to do that. We've wanted to do that. We tried to, we made several approaches. We even had some producers that have a track record for our 20th anniversary. Went to Banff, and nobody was interested in a 20th year anniversary
in Banff
at the Banff television thing.
So
okay. So even going where the power people are. We got to, we got enough stand-up. So...
Well, that's, I guess. Well, like, you also have Rank and Vile that you do with Darren Frost, right? So, obviously, we're like, Nubian is one thing. You're talking about, like, all black lineup, mostly black lineup. And then Rank and Vile is you and Darren just going full blue, full uncensored. Have you found the reception to that more mainstream than to Nubian, like, on the road? And you think
yes and no.
Okay.
I mean, it's been it's us doing what we do without apologizing.
Well, yeah.
So some nights were sold out, and other nights we're saying, "Damn, if we had 20 more people here, this would have made the difference between a good night and a great night."
So I guess what I mean is, like, do you find that it was easier or more difficult to market Rank and Vile versus Nubian outside of Toronto?
Yeah, Rank and Vile can travel anywhere.
It can travel anywhere, so you find
I'll get my old fans that don't want to hear the political stuff. Now, funny thing though, a friend of mine, Deb Bozeman, opened up this place called Deb's Comedy Den, and it's at it doesn't have a liquor license.
Okay.
And it's small.
Yeah.
And a couple of weeks ago, I was playing there, and we had maybe about 10 people in the audience. And I was trying to avoid the hits, and as a result, that night, I was starting to dig into more political, personal pieces. So I'm going, okay, there's still stuff to do here. Like I did a bit about how, I was called the N-word at school as a kid, and my father said, well, then call them the K-word. The kike. If the Jews call you, then you call them.
Then it's open season.
Then it's on.
It's open season.
So of course, all the teachers were Jewish. So by the time I had my word out my mouth, they had me in chokeholds. And a little anti-Semite kicking me with the old teacher shoes, and then took me into Principal Troutman. And and all that, because I was fist fighting with Freddie Cohn. And then, so then the teacher, Mrs. Balanoff, she didn't want me, or Mrs. Grossman didn't want me in her homeroom. So they put my desk out in the hallway. So before I was 10 years old, I related to the Palestinians because Palestinians didn't have a homeland. I was a kid without a home room.
And you're both affected by the Jewish population, apparently.
You just have to say Jewish softly. If you say say it hard. That's why when Bill Cosby goes to jail, I just hope he joins the Nation of Islam because you will never hear. You think Farrakhan is hateful to me? Cosby. See, then the Jews turned on me. So I'm looking forward to Cos, becoming a member of the Fruit of Alam or something.
How do you? What's your opinion on Farrakhan, Nation of Islam?
I can't say.
You can't say?
No. There's times when I thought I was being treated unfairly by the organization. So I would, my parting words were, I'm going to send Farrakhan $20.
All right.
And, they were like, oh, that's so hurtful, So Farrakhan, he does say some angry, hurtful things. But also he says some things that have some value.
Well, yeah. Would you say that because he is very anti-Semitic?
Yes.
He's got a real problem with Jewish people.
Yeah.
But maybe it's just me, but
see. But then I had an uncle that was a semi-follower.
Yeah.
So the uncle. See, the Jew is not the black man's friend. If the Jew was the black man's friend, he would have taught him how to run a business. He would have taught him how to invest. He would have taught him how to add and how to subtract. And then when I said that to Lou Eisen, he goes, why do we have to teach you silly nignogs how to add and subtract? So in fact, the weekend there was one time when the trouble when the racist was going after Morton in Saskatoon. Lou and I were there a week or two later, and they had this baseball game in the bar. So and you can name your name. So it was the Nigs versus the Jews. So the manager came over and he sees the names on the thing on the scoreboard. And he just quietly walked away.
What, he had a problem with the word Jews?
Well, I had Bob Gibson pitching against Sandy Koufax. And we're doing a broadcast saying the Jews have a 3-1 lead, but the Nigs got the heart of their lineup coming to bat now.
Well, that's the thing. Something like that I could do on my show today.
Yeah.
But I put in several content warnings, right? Because this is a fact.
See, now I could have somebody on the left say that is anti-Semitic, it's anti-black, it is this and that, and and just ruin me and Lou's baseball game. Yeah. That's all they done.
It's exactly what I mean. It was like picking fights at every level, right? So I find that, I have to warn people now, kind of like at the movies. This is R-rated, this is X-rated. Same with this. This is a 100% uncensored triple X-rated show. We're going to say some shit. If you don't like it, don't come.
Yeah.
And I found that that's kind of completely negated any negative feedback. Because if you come to this show and you complain, people don't take you seriously. You go to a horror movie, you don't complain about the blood. You knew what you were getting into.
See, I'm lucky that my rep has already established
that's what I was getting
over the past few
that's what I want to ask.
Over the past decades. So people that get offended and book corporates they never come to see me at these dives.
It's like Michelle Wolf at the White House.
She was beautiful, wasn't she?
She was, and she made the best point. She's like, "Did you do your research before you hired me?" Right?
Or when Richard Pryor upset the gay rights benefit in L.A. with the "Kiss My Happy Rich Black Ass" and talked about when he sucked a dick. And everybody got mad, and meanwhile he was mad about how the black dancers were being treated backstage and all this other shit. And Lily Tomlin said, when you hire Richard Pryor, you get Richard Pryor.
100%. That's what I mean. Just that there's that whole aspect of you're getting what you paid for. Like with Michelle Wolf, with yourself, Richard Pryor, and all that. These days, I find that, like we said earlier, it's people on the left who seem to be more bothered by it than anybody else, really. In fact, people on the right almost make it a sport. Oh, look at all these lefties triggered by, let's say, Kenny Robinson. That might even get you fans on the right-wing spectrum just because of how people are reacting to you.
I would never vote for a Ford, but I became sympathetic to Rob Ford.
Same, actually. Not gonna lie.
Because of the pistol whipping he took. Like when he didn't want to spend money for the anti-AIDS advertising.
Oh, okay.
I
didn't know about that one.
Yeah, and he says that's a waste of money there. He's homophobic. Well, no, what he was saying, and what I said was, do you know who's really upset about that? the advertising agency that would have got the billboards.
Right.
Because if after Freddie Mercury, after Rock Hudson, after Liberace, after how many people have died from that disease, if you don't know to wrap it, if you're doing certain things, then a billboard ain't gonna help you.
100%.
And then somebody says, "Well, this is for younger people that are practicing." And I said, "Well, they grew up being told that Magic Johnson can't play basketball anymore, so they've had the education to do this now. It's just a paycheck or a gravy train, if you want to call it for somebody."
Right. I mean, with Rob Ford, like I personally, for example, disagreed with him probably 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
Right. But I never really thought of him as like, I didn't think he was malicious, if that's even like.
He's a buffoon.
Exactly. It seemed like he was just dumb. He was just
Now, Doug is goddamn mean.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Doug Ford, he seemed to me the Dick Cheney to Rob Ford's George W. Bush.
Yeah.
You know, so Doug Ford was always.
And don't George W. look so good now?
So good.
Hold Michelle Obama's hand every time they get together.
My favorite thing to come out of this Trump presidency was George W. Bush going into Kimmel, and the first thing he says, he looks at the audience and goes, "How you like me now?"
Yeah. Or even
audience
George
is
Sr. is saying, "Man, this Trump's an asshole."
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the guys that America thought was, the left thought was the worst things could ever be in office. They're going, "Hey, we ain't that. We was this. But
Yeah,
we ain't that."
we were never that. Exactly.
that.
No, I find that it's kind of like a full circle of we're always, like, as a society, people always kind of, one part is people forget the past.
Yeah.
And secondly, they think that what happened in the past is not going to happen in the future.
Oh, yeah.
And then we end up repeating the same thing. It's just like a curve that goes up and down and up
Perfect
and
example.
down.
Today I posted a picture from the '67 riots in Detroit of some police officers billy clubbing this one guy down on the ground.
There's a black man. I think I saw the picture you posted. Yeah.
And I put that up because now with all this, Chicago was wilding last weekend.
Like 40 deaths or something?
No, 9 dead, but 70 shot.
Oh, my God.
So I laughed because when my kid brother was shot there, he got shot 2-3 times. He lived, but his shooting didn't even make the paper.
Ooh.
So wasn't even newsworthy. So I've got black people even saying, "Well, we should have they need martial law."
Mm-hmm.
And I put on the caption, for those of you that think that martial law is the answer, this is what it looks like.
Right. Yeah, it's exactly
When they say
right.
everybody off the street at 7 o'clock, that includes you trying to get to school. That includes you trying to get to your job. That includes
Everybody,
you wanting to take your girlfriend out.
Mm-hmm.
That includes everybody except for the unaffected by the violence in the city, white, suburban neighborhoods.
Yeah,
It includes. So this is what you're advocating.
Mm-hmm.
No, martial law is not the answer.
No, I've lived under martial law temporarily when I was in Russia as a kid, when it was transitioning from the USSR to Russia. Bad time.
Oh, yeah.
And then in Bangladesh, which is still a mess for a little while, after 7 p.m., if you were a group of guys, like 3 guys or more, cops could arrest you for no reason.
And you guys disappear when they're arrested?
All the fucking time.
Really?
I remember one time.
I thought after George Harrison did that concert, everything was cool.
White man played the guitar, everything was fine after.
Sue's the Savage Beast,
Solved
and
all our
everything's
problems. Yeah, no, in Russia, after 30 years of the CIA messing with them, after massive amounts of government corruption, life was very hard. So the people they blamed were immigrants. Right,
Yes.
so we had to leave, and Russia never had any problems since then either.
Even the Soviet Jews had to go to Israel.
Everybody
or
had
to
to
New
leave,
York
yeah.
and become that gangster class
Yeah.
that they have there.
And in both cases, what really stood out to me was that the people who supported the martial law thought that it wouldn't apply to them. Right?
Just like these poor people that voted for Trump or for Ford.
Exactly. And then in Bangladesh, I remember specifically one night, me and my buddies were literally going back to my place from hanging out somewhere, right? It's like 7:05. We get pulled over by like 17 cops, like 3 cars. They had the shotguns pointed at us, and they're like, come out. Just took all of our stuff.
So y'all didn't smell like weed, did you?
Nothing. We were just going back home. We were like
yeah.
16. It was just martial law, right?
You were 7 minutes late.
Yeah, exactly. And then one of my buddies was one of those pro-martial law guys, right? He had been all month, he'd be like, no, this will help, blah, 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 law and order, and it'll take the criminals off the street. He didn't understand that you don't give people with guns more power.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Power is an aphrodisiac. It
He was
changes
like Rock Hudson, didn't know that Wetbacks was his family.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. So this guy being pulled over with the rest of us was just like, how can you do this? This is wrong.
He's the one that got the rifle
got
butt
smacked hard.
Yes.
Shut the fuck up.
Good. The one that was most supportive of this nonsense.
The bootlicker got booted, basically.
You got to lick some boot.
Exactly.
You think this show's probably had the most racial slurs thrown ever in any of your other broadcasts?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise I got to crank it up for the last few minutes to make sure.
That reminds me, we got to wrap up in a couple minutes.
I got parking. I don't know if the parking ticket's going to expire or not. Yeah.
I just want to get your thought real quick right now on one thing. Of the current crop of comedians that you've seen on Nubian, who are the three that you have the highest hope for? Let's just put a lot of pressure on them right now.
Okay.
I know you speak very highly of Hodo.
Hodo's a bad girl. I have my troubles with Hodo. She always wants to get paid early and leave before I get the money. Or she'll go over her time, and I don't beat Hodo like I beat the others. So then they all say, how come Hodo's special? And I say, Hodo's special. So I would let my star athlete be an asshole if I was a major league team.
That's just what happens.
You know what's a bitch? The ones I have the most respect for and admiration for now tend to be the female comics. Okay, Hodo's a bad girl. Crystal Ferrier.
Oh, Crystal's amazing. She's been killing it for a while.
And she's only getting better.
Yeah.
She's only getting better. In fact, I did a terrible thing to Crystal, though. It was her first time headlining, and she had just kicked the shit out of that room. Kicked it, stomped it, beat it up, called it all kinds of names, and then we had to pull her off, stop it from beating it again. So I said to her, man, the last time I seen anybody do that to a room, it was Russell Peters. And she looked at me with her eyes all big. She said, really? I said, nah, bitch. So then she just started crying, right? Jay Martin said it was like, it's like, I should have just waited a second longer because it's like watching somebody saw the rope and then the piano fall on somebody.
Yeah.
But she did kick the shit out of
it.
Oh,
Crystal's amazing.
Crystal's a bad girl. Also, Aisha Brown.
Aisha Brown, of course.
She's political. She's smart. She can get raunchy. I just think so, But a lot of the women are doing more political, racial material.
That's their lives. You
talk
about
a lot
what
of the male comics. So I eat ass like groceries. And I'm going,
exactly.
I'm going. Oh man, didn't I do 20 years of that to show you that this ain't eating ass ain't gonna get you that TV spot, kids.
So Hodo, Crystal. And wait, who was the last one? Aisha Brown.
Yeah. And then I just become familiar with Tamara.
Tamara Sivan, yeah.
I don't
think I've seen her on stage just because of schedule, but I've heard great things.
She's got a certain kind of grit and toughness that the others don't. Shit is real.
Yeah.
I'd like to see more writing from her, but she's got more street flavor to her than a lot of comics I've seen in a long time.
You ever had to handle things in the green room when the guys weren't behaving right with the women?
No, because we haven't had any grabbing. But then they've done roasts. Like Crystal and Keisha Brownie. They've done roasts with the fellas.
Yeah. No, I don't mean. Mean that. So I mean interpersonally.
No, but what I'm saying is so at a roast, or even backstage where you're working your lines out, the guy said to one of the two, "You've seen more Jamaican dick than the bathroom," and then name some club.
Right.
So the urinal at such and such. So so it's almost like they've come up in that sparring environment.
So they're tough. Yeah, they can take it. Okay, cool.
Yeah, thing I said about my, with my Nubian crew when we used to have a show at the Groundhog, they were all, as I told them, when they go out west, they didn't fear working these other rooms. Because as I told them, you've been baptized in a barrel of butcher knives.
Exactly. I think Daniel Woodrow, years ago, I think I saw him on Nubian. Long before I even did comedy, I just came by once.
Chris Robinson's a bad boy. A bad man.
Yeah. But my favorite was Woodrow I think somebody. It wasn't even Nubian. It was a regular night yuck. Something was going on. Somebody was heckling Woodrow, and he's just like, "Listen, I've done stand up in black clubs. I'm not afraid of you." And he specifically was talking about actually just Nubian. He just said black club instead of black show, and that kind of got me thinking way early about how, like having a tough upbringing and being in the thick of things will help you in the long run.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No point being soft early and then having to deal with the hardness of the industry later on.
Well, it's like when Ron Josso went out to Alberta the first time.
Oh, yeah.
And,
he's
Gavin,
one of my favorites. Like,
well,
yeah.
Once again, Nubian crew.
Yeah.
And we did the Groundhog. Jason Rouse part of that.
Yeah.
So, the Groundhog was my place to get the guys extra stage time. And it was basically just monkeys flinging shit at the audience. That's the only way I could describe those nights.
Yeah.
Okay. A few times some women came, and then a lot of the female comics never came back. Almost like that girl that hitchhiked and almost got raped and never hitchhike again.
Yeah.
That's the ground. Except for Katie Davis, my girl was like 7 or 8 months pregnant. Walked into the Groundhog.
Kate Davis.
Yeah,
she's amazing.
She walked in
Incredible.
saying, "Open up for Bill Clinton." So she walked in saying, "Can I get on?" I say, "You want to get on in this zoo?" And she, yes. And then Katie, the first time she got pressed, there used to be this really drunk, obnoxious broad used to come there, and she could make people cry, and just terrible. Actually, she wound up killing somebody doing a drunk driving thing. But,
God.
She was heckling Katie, and Jim Slotek was in the room and wrote it in the Toronto Sun the next day. Katie says, "My, you seem to have gained 15 pounds since the last time you heckled me." So there she was, pow, because the broad had bloated from alcohol and wings.
Nice.
So Katie just knocked, and I'm proud that Slotek, he was there to hear it, and she, you could have tore a heckler 1,000 times, but Jim was there that night. So there she got her first taste of bang, and was such a great knockout line.
Yeah, no. I mean, Kate Davis is a pro now. She's touring all over the world. So in the last few years, final question, because you always have like a token white comic on. Who's your favorite the last couple of years?
Oh, Jerry D.
Jerry D?
Jerry D had to wait like 3-4 years to get on the Nubia show.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's got his... What about from the newer crew? I've heard you like Paul Thompson?
I love Thompson. I love Rita. But
Rita,
but their animals are a whole different thing. Mm-hmm. They, they're that 420 friendly thing.
420 stream of consciousness, kind of ranty, not... Yeah.
See, that's my improv jazz loving side
100%.
of it too,
That's the beauty of live stage, right? You're not... That's what... I mean, that's why showcase sets are just kind of feel almost a little bland and rehearsed, whereas you're live, you're riffing, you're creating new,
Paulie Walnuts, he's just wrapping up the show and he yells, "I got love on the streets."
What?
What the fuck? That's I was with Griff, my buddy from Atlanta. I think he's down in Dallas now. And Griff go, "God damn, what that motherfucker say? Got love on the streets." So
that's hilarious.
Yeah. So
cool. Paulie Walnuts.
Well, Paulie Walnuts. That's what John Paul calls Paul Thompson. Paulie Walnuts. So because he's gangster.
No, he's he's definitely one of my favorites. Also awesome. So let me
Nate McIntosh. Nate Dogg.
Oh, I love Nathan McIntosh. Is my favorite Canadian comedian in the States
One
right
Nubian
now.
show, Nate's going about how he loves black women. Said a white woman will ask you, "Do I look good?" Black woman say, "Didn't nobody ask you?" They got so much confidence because I would trade my mother to Somalian pirates to be with a black woman. So I said, "Oh shit, trade your moms to Somalian pirates?" Just the fact he pulled out Somalian pirates, had me going, "My God, boom!" and just knocked him out. Well, Paulie Thompson, first time he did the Nubian show, I wish he'd repeat it. Was he walk out and he opened, "I hate white people. I hate white people." And the guy's going, "What?" And he's going, "I hate them." Said, black people, y'all may whip your child, but when white people discipline a child, y'all go, we start hanging up posters, say, looking for them. And then he was talking about how his mother never made any good food. He goes, I'll take a whooping from a West Indian mother if I could get a roti or some.
Nice.
And start naming all this West Indian food as opposed to mac and cheese instead of pogo dogs. And he started listing everything his mom would cook in a microwave. He goes, "I would take a serious
instant noodles.
lashes. I would take serious beats if I, so in the crowd, because what he did." He went in and he dropped his appreciation and knowledge of the culture.
Yeah. He wasn't speaking like an outsider or a fetishist, almost one who's.
That's good. Paulie got love on the streets.
Yeah.
But I mean, he came on there and he dropped that.
Nice.
So how can he'd be one of my favorites to sit back and watch.
Sweet. When's the next one? Let's give it a quick plug.
I think it's on the 26th.
26th of August.
Got, 26th of August, and we got Mark James Heath.
Oh, nice.
From Chicago headlining this show.
He's all sober now.
Yeah.
So he's
I'm gonna put. I think I got Sam Norton on that show. Another Chicago boy. Some slipping my Chicago homies on there.
Nice. He's also on the Your Hood's a Joke on September 2nd. He's repping America. We're doing America versus Vietnam. I'm gonna redo.
I thought I was dated for the second.
You're also on there. It's a bunch of different
you got
battles.
Different shows, not just one night.
No, on the second, I've got I think 5 battles. Yours is one of them.
Okay, who am I battling?
I haven't decided yet.
Okay.
But
who am I representing?
Either Winnipeg or Manitoba.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one place, it's still sad. I tried to get booked in the club in Winnipeg. Couldn't. They never booked me. The old owner and the new one. But I walked in one time. I was wearing like yellow snakeskin shoes and a yellow cashmere jacket, and I go, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's nice to be back home in Winnipeg." And the room just looked like, "Nah, you ain't one."
You're not.
Nah. I was born here, Winnipeg man from Winnipeg man. They wasn't hearing it.
Nope.
Because they say Winnipeg people don't wear no yellow cashmere jacket, no yellow snakeskin shoes.
No, you wear a parka over a parka.
And a jersey under it.
Exactly.
I got to look at a Guess Who album, figure out what I should dress like.
Sweet. Okay, sweet. So Nubian, next Nubian. Sunday,
yeah.
August 26th at Yuck Yucks downtown.
Yeah.
We got Kenny Robinson here, godfather of Canadian comedy.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you.
We'll be back.
Rank and Vile going out to the Maritimes in October.
Rank and Vile in the East Coast.
October 12th to I think the 21st or something like that. Going to Halifax, St. John, and hopefully we pick up some other stops along the way.
Awesome. If you like your comedy hardcore, check it out, please.
If you like it hardcore and unapologetic.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Till next time.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure.
Shut the fuck up, did I?